Hi there, this is the second part of the 5.10 lesson, and as I was reading in the last video I got cut off when the time ended, so I'm just going to start here again with other crises. Nixon managed two other major foreign crises. In 1971, India and Pakistan, bitter rivals since their independence from Britain in 1947, became embroiled in an armed conflict. At stake was the fate of East Pakistan, now called Bangladesh, a breakaway region that sought independence from the government in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. Pakistan was a close ally of China, with whom the Nixon administration was then conducting secret diplomatic talks. So the administration backed Pakistan, delivering on much-needed military and humanitarian assistance. Despite this aid, Indian military forces won the war, resulting in the independence of Bangladesh. War in the Middle East posed yet another danger. In 1973, on the eve of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the holiest of Jewish holidays, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat launched an Egyptian-led invasion of Israel. Several other Arab countries either contributed aid or entered this fourth Arab-Israeli war, sometimes called the Yom Kippur War. Arab forces caught the Israelis by surprise. Israel's Prime Minister, Golda Meir, appealed to the United States for help. Nixon hesitated at first, but once it became clear that the Soviets were supplying Egypt and Syria, the United States rushed fresh supplies and military equipment to Israel. The American aid helped turn the tide of the war in Israel's favor. After 16 days of fighting, the war ended in a stalemate with a ceasefire agreement. Let's read about these inserts here that we skipped over as well. Now, oil embargo of 73. In the last days of the Yom Kippur War, the oil-producing Arab nations decided to punish the United States and other Western nations for helping Israel. They declared an oil embargo that quadrupled, which is 4 times, the price of oil within months. An embargo is a government order to stop trade in certain goods or to impose barriers to trade. The oil-producing nations acted through the power of OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, founded in 1960 when Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and other oil-producing nations banded together to form a cartel. A group of business interests joined together to fix prices and limit competition. In nations targeted by OPEC's 1973 oil embargo, the result was an energy crisis. In the United States, drivers needing to fill their gas tanks waited in lines that stretched for blocks. The federal government imposed a national maximum speed limit of 55 miles per hour. Some schools and offices closed to save heating oil. Factories laid off workers. The embargo sent a shiver through the Western world, since petroleum was the lifeblood of industrial civilization. And let's read this insert here, a mad arms race. The strategic arms limitation talks aimed to rein in an escalating arms race. Through the 1960s and into the 70s, the superpowers built enormous arsenals of nuclear weapons that could destroy not just each other, but the entire planet many times over. Ironically, from this buildup of nuclear arms emerged a strategy for preventing a horrible war between the two superpowers. According to the strategy of mutually assured destruction, MAD, each superpower understood that to launch a nuclear attack would be to sign its own death warrant, because the other superpower would respond with its own devastating nuclear attack. American and Soviet leaders reasoned that the prospect of mutual annihilation would keep them from plunging the world into a nuclear catastrophe. The problem with this mad strategy, however, was that each superpower felt it could be safe only if its military was as powerful or more powerful than the others. So each side raced to build larger and larger stockpiles of weapons. Okay, now let's finish. Go to your lesson answer key and check your answers on your reading guide. Make sure you have the right information from the lesson reading. And let's continue on. A complex president. As the 1960s gave way to the 70s, civil rights and the Vietnam War were still major issues. But there were other pressing concerns as well. Rapid population growth and industrialization had resulted in a deteriorating environment in the United States and around the world. By 1970, environmentalism had gained strength as a movement dedicated to ending, and if possible, reversing this decline in the human environment. The environment was just one issue President Nixon would have to deal with during his presidency. Follow the directions in the student guide to continue today's lesson. And what we have, the Use What You Know activity. President Richard Nixon won the 1968 presidential election with a campaign that promised to transfer power from Washington back to the states. This conservative Southern strategy appealed to many Southerners' distrust of Washington and helped Nixon win the White House. Once in office, however, he turned to be an unexpected moderate in terms of domestic policies. Nixon's foreign policy also surprised many Americans. Although Nixon had built his political reputation as a crusading anti-communist, he extended a hand of friendship to the Chinese and pursued a policy of détente with the Soviet Union. Review Nixon's accomplishments and then choose one you think was his most important. Write a short paragraph in your history journal that briefly describes his accomplishment, explains why you believe it was his most important one. And remember, your history journal is something you do on your own. It's just your own personal notebook for reflection. So just look at Nixon's accomplishments, whether it's the environment or the Family Assistance Program, FAP, or some other accomplishment that he made, or a foreign policy one even, easing relations with China, détente with the Soviet Union. Review some of those and think which one you think is the most important and reflect upon that and the reasons why you think it was the most important. Okay, and we go back to the lesson, and you just have the 5.10 checkpoint at the end. So make sure you log into your 5.10 checkpoint and complete that, and then you are done with the 5.10 lesson. Good luck on your checkpoint.